Hi, this is Corey Johnston, and today's lesson is going to span the range of the first 13 verses of the 27th chapter in the book of Proverbs. Before we do our verse-by-verse commentary and analysis, we just want to briefly review what took place in the antecedent chapter, especially the second half, because we've been dividing these chapters in half. And if the theme which predominates in the first half of the 26th chapter is fools, the one that really predominates in the second half is quarrels and contentions and violence, and what is their root, what is their origin, how does it happen, who thrives in it, who brings it about, and everything else. So the 17th verse reads, "One who takes a dog by the ears is a passerby meddling in a strife not his own." So there's danger comparable to grabbing a dog by the ears. Once you have him by the ears, you have control of him, but once you let go, he's going to turn around and bite you, and that's what happens when you meddle in affairs not your own, when you intervene in situations that don't require your input or your interest aren't at stake. You're just inviting trouble into your own home by meddling in other people's affairs. Like a madman who throws sparks and arrows in death, so is a man who is deceiving his neighbor and says, "I was only joking." So practical jokes are acceptable between friends, but to a limit, in all things moderation, and you cannot... it shouldn't be fatal or injurious or deadly, these practical jokes, so that excuse is invalidated by the effect that it caused. For lack of wood, the fire goes out, and without a slanderer, strife ceases. Therein we learn that the slanderer is the origin and the perpetuator of strife, and they are, much as a wood is reliant on a fire in the woods is reliant on the wood to burn, so too is strife reliant on the slanderer to get it started or to keep it going. A slanderer is one who makes up things about themselves, about others, that are not true. They are libelous claims, and they are the origin of all strife and contention. Charcoal is for burning coals, and wood to fire. So is a contentious man to kindle strife. So the contentious ones are the ones who kindle it. They're the ones who keep it going. These are the people who thrive on drama and unnecessary drama and just commotion. It gives people whose lives are empty at the core an excuse to have meaning in their life and purpose, and it gets them up in the morning. But the words of a slanderer are as a dainty morsel which go down into the inner parts of the heart. Earlier we read that as without a slanderer, strife ceases, and this elaborates on the slanderer. Now their words, their poison, does have a sweet, delectable taste. So there is an attraction, a certain attraction, more so to the natural man than the Christian one, to gossip and slander and innuendo. Earthenware covered with silver dross are a burning lips with an evil heart. So these, the subsequent verses all pertain to the deception with which liars and slanderers and flatterers use to mask their language. And the earthenware that was covered with silver, the silver just masks the inferior material quality of the earth, the clud and the may, the clay and the mud, and that is what people with burning lips and evil hearts do. Though he speaks kindly, do not believe him, for there are 7 abominations in his heart. So there's a discrepancy between his walk and his talk, the slanderer and the stroker of contention, and his words belittle his true intention. And such a one we should not have faith in. We have to exercise our discernment and discretion in whom we place trust and faith. And there is such a thing as misleading and manipulative words. Hatred is covered by deceit. His evil is disclosed in the assembly. So the architects and the avatars of hatred, they don't advertise. They seldom admit that they are hateful. What they do is conceal it and cloak it through deceit. And then their evil eventually will unravel and be exposed in public. Verse 28, the final verse. A lying tongue hates its bruised ones, and a flattering mouth works ruin. So lies injure people, and if you lie to someone, that is in fact an act of hatred to deceive or mislead or injure them by leading them into error or ignorance. And flattery is not communication; it is manipulation. So one who flatters, one who is a superficial, sycophantic suck-up is in fact not your friend, but one trying to manipulate you into favoring them, and they are working ruin. They bring ruin about to and fro wherever they go. So stay away from people who flatter you inordinately. And this marks the beginning of the lesson itself. Verse 1, chapter 27. Do not boast of tomorrow, for what you do not know what a day brings forth. So there's a mystery about the future which gives us little cause or license to boast. We cannot boast in what we do not know or do not have yet. And James 4:14 says that boast not for tomorrow, for this life is only a vapor. That means our life could end at any moment. And this takes us to the New Testament parable of the foolish rich man in Luke's 12th chapter, the one who stored up all his grains. He tore down the grains he had because they couldn't store the abundance, so he built new grains, and he thought he was set, he was contented, he was delight, and then the voice of Elohim himself visits him and tells him, you fool, don't you know that tomorrow your day is numbered? So who will get all your treasures and all your wealth? So the day is coming when you're going to die and someone's going to get all your stuff. And another New Testament which speaks on the concept of tomorrow is Matthew 6:34, where he says, worry not for tomorrow, for the trouble of today is sufficient. And the worrying about tomorrow, it is the fear of anxiety. That's when the mystery haunts us, and we dread our most fearsome expectations, and they become a reality in our own imagination. But anxiety can be both short-term, future, whether in the present situation, what's going to happen to me now, what's going to happen to me tonight, what's going to happen to me while I'm here. And there's also long-term anxiety, which is the longer-term dread of what's going to happen to my life. Let another man praise you, and not you your own mouth, a stranger, and not your own lips. There are obvious advantages to having someone else praise you, because when you praise yourself, you look like a self-serving creature, and people tend to draw away from such a one. Braggarts do tend to have a repellent quality. But if you are in fact praiseworthy, then you will suffer from no shortage of people to sing your hosannas and praise you. So it's obviously to your advantage and to your interest. If you praise yourself, you're eventually, he who exalts himself shall be abased, and he who humbles himself shall be exalted. Matthew 23:12, Luke 14:11, and 18:14. A stone is heavy and sand is weighty, but a fool's wrath is heavier than both. So don't meddle with a foolish person. Do not incur their wrath. It is a risk we have to calculate before we engage in a fool, because if we provoke their wrath, that is a heavier burden than a stone and sand, which are voluminous physical objects. But a fool's wrath is not tangible, but it is heavier in the subterranean and spiritual and invisible sense. Wrath of a fool it's a heavy load to invite into your life. So if you can avoid it, do. And the way to avoid that is not to provoke or even engage a fool. Wrath is cruel and displeasure overwhelming, but who is able to stand before jealousy? So wrath is cruel, that's an obvious self-evident statement, and displeasure can be overwhelming. There are degrees of displeasure, and there is such an extent that it overwhelms the one in whom it afflicts. But jealousy, envy is even worse than wrath or displeasure, and envy used to be considered one of the 7 deadly sins until rather recently, liberals euphemized it into social justice, but that is divorced from its meaning. There is such a thing as a social justice prophet and a concern in the Old Testament. These were concerned with social justice, but the secular social justice warriors of today are they're addicts. They are drama junkies seeking their fix. They're forever seeking to use incidents as pretext to manufacture grievances, and they should take their fix and take their Jones and seek their fix, these drama junkies, to any country but here. Open reproof is better than hidden love. So the element of transparency is what gives it its superior standing than that which is concealed. And reproof is, in fact, an act of love, and it's tough love, but sometimes tough love is better than no love at all. So we must be willing to hurt the ones we love. That is something we have to embrace as parents, as friends, as brothers, and as everything else. But we shouldn't keep our love hidden. We must make that equally transparent. We need to know. It's not enough to love another person without making them known. Periodically, you don't want to be insufferable about it, but just let them know that you love them, those who you do, in fact, love. The wounds of a friend are true, but the kisses of an enemy are profuse. So friends must know how to hurt and injure and wound. They're not fatal. They're not going to kill a friendship, but they have to wound it from time to time in order to instill the correction, which will instill that friend onto the correct course of action that he is straying from. And these wounds, if they are from a friend, they are true. Wounds from an enemy are usually false, but wounds from a true friend will be true. They will say the truth to you. They will speak it in love. So how that we speak truth is not enough. It's how we speak it that really matters. Ephesians 4:15. But the kisses of an enemy, now kisses were signals of affection and friendship in the ancient world. We witness Judas Iscariot betray his master with a kiss, and the kisses are pluralized in this verse. So even a single kiss did all that damage to, his mortal body, but, Satan was defeated that day for all time and eternity on the cross. One satisfied loathes the honeycomb, but to a hungry one any bitter is sweet. So in the 25th chapter, verses 16 and 27, Solomon warns against the excessive intake or indulgence of honeycomb, that you can vomit it if you take too much. And but here he says, if you are satisfied, if you are full, then honeycomb is going to be an inordinate intake for your body to digest and absorb. But to hungry one, anything that is bitter tastes sweet. So when you are hungry, you are not have the luxury to despise digesting additional food. You take what you can get, and even if it is bitter, it's going to taste sweet. There's nothing like the first bite of food after a prolonged fast. Like a bird that wanders from its nest, so is a man who wanders from his place. Now, in contemporary America, it is a reliable approximate estimate that 17% of citizens relocate annually. That's because we are a mobile society, but the ancient Israelites, they were close kit, and they had tribal designations, and they were encouraged to marry within their tribes, so they were close-knit communities. They had the lands and distributed to them in the second half of the book of Joshua. If you wander, if you are a wanderer from your home, your place, that doesn't mean physical wandering. It can also mean spiritual detachment from your friends and family. So a bird wouldn't wander from its nest because that's where its young ones are. That's where its family is. That's where the ones it has to nurture from. They go as far as they need to get the worms to feed their young. But a man who wanders from his place is likened to a bird that wanders from his nest, because who's in the nest? Your family, your loved ones, those you should be looking out for. Ointment and perfume gladden the heart. So one's counsel is sweet to a friend. Now, one's counsel, friend-to-friend counsel, is not always necessarily sweet. Sometimes it stings, sometimes it's bitter, but this is all part of the tough love, which we elaborated upon earlier. But in general, counsel, advice, and just discussion and conversation from friend to friend is a sweet fragrance, and it's compared here to ointment and perfume that gladden the heart. So friends stimulate and grow the heart. It is a heart-to-heart connection, and they are mutually reinforced, friend to friend. Do not forsake your own friend or your father's friend, and do not go into your brother's house in the day of calamity. Better is a neighbor nearby than a brother far away. So loyalty is the firm foundation of friendship and family. So our fathers have friends. These are family friends. They are our friends by connection. These are the ones we should look out for in case our father is not there to do so. But obviously, if you forsake your friend, then you perhaps never really were a friend. You may have been at one time, but you are no longer a friend once you forsake them. And it's better to have a neighbor nearby. There is a brother who sticketh closer than a brother, we read elsewhere in the book of Proverbs. And such a one is valuable to have as a refuge and solace and sanctuary for if any calamity or trouble visits your home. Better a neighbor nearby than a brother far away. That can mean physically or spiritually. So we can interpret them in both lenses, and neither are completely right, neither are completely wrong. Both are correct, and we feel that the maintenance of the balance between the two is the proper assessment of its interpretation. My son, be wise and glad in my heart, that I might have a word from him who reproaches me. So a son is a testimony and a reflection of the father who raised him. Same thing with the student to the teacher. So they are our pride and our source and delight. That we instill our values and our knowledge on others is a reflection of us, and they gladden our heart when we send them out into the world and see them grow and flourish and prosper. That is a testimony to our own merits as parents and also as teachers. And this eliminates any potentiality, not completely, for reproach, because you can always point to your son with pride. But if your son is a wayward, disobedient child and just, a sinner, then that's going to be a reproach on the one who raised him or the teacher who taught him to be what he is, in spite of the teaching, perhaps. A clever man foresees calamity, hides himself. The simple shall go on. They are punished. So anticipation based on prophecy, we have the Old Testament and New Testament passages of the end times, and it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. But we who are wise, we who are righteous, we who are grounded in the Word, will have some anticipation, and it's going to unfold exactly as described. So there won't be much mystery as to when it arrives. That will be mysterious, but once it gets here, there's not going to be a whole lot of mystery. And but even more in the immediate sense, a clever man will avoid calamity by hiding themselves from it, whereas the simple will move on as a matter of course, and they will not anticipate the danger or the consequential curses of going their own way, and they are punished. And this also bears to mind Noah's generation. Here was a man with his 8 family members building an ark in the middle of dry land, and his neighbors, all of humanity, whose imaginations of their art were only evil, and that continually just kept giving. They were going in marriage and giving in marriage and feasting, and then one day the judgment came, and so too shall be the return of the Son of Man. There's going to be a lot of precedents in the generation of Noah. I know we think the world can't get much more wicked, but it can, and it will, and it must. Final verse, 13. Take the garment of him who is guarantor for a stranger, and for a strange woman pledge it. So garments could be sued for in a court of law. That was one of the things that a guarantor for a stranger, if a guarantor is one who attaches their name to the name of another when he procures a loan or anything else, that's when you vouch for him, and legally they have the right to take your garment for having vouched for such a one. So Solomon says it is just because the foolish person who does not anticipate the calamity or foresee it, as we read in the antecedent verse, will completely deserve having his garment taken. And to pledge it to a strange woman, to pledge it means it goes to another stranger. So there are definite consequences for vouching for a stranger. We want to have more than a blank slate for the people we associate with and the people we vouch for. And that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you're here. Stay tuned until next time. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.